for the board are just to tune in for our next meeting and note it on your calendar for April 7th at 4 p.m. if you will hold that date. And if you don't want to have to hold that date, you can be on our mailing list and we will let you know when we have an upcoming meeting. I'd also encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. And I'll put our email in the chat, but it is Tarrant County Food Policy Council at gmail.com. Feel free to send us an email. I'll get you on the mailing list. And we'll also conveniently follow up each general meeting with a video recap. So you can have that at your disposal to review as you need. And that's about it for me as secretary.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Harrison. Brenda, you're up next with our treasurer's report.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Patton. I'm the treasurer for Food Policy Council, and I'm also the director of policy for Blue Zones Project under Texas Health. Our account is at $5,865. We still do have a check that we need to deposit that would add another $5,000. So that's great. Our charges since the last meeting have been anytime mailbox, so setting up a mailbox. Becca has been busy, and our GoDaddy account is on a recurring charge. And then we also got our own Zoom account. So those are great uses of our funding. Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Next, we've got Susie with our past chair report.
I'm not sure I have anything report-like to share, but I do want to welcome everybody. It's great to see all the names. Even if we can't see your faces, I see some familiar names that aren't normally with us on the Food Policy Council meeting. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Susie. And then Catherine, do you have anything for a vice chair report?
Not at this time. I can go ahead and do communications really quick if you would like me to, or if you would like to wait further in the agenda.
We can wait. We've got those, I think, a little bit later in the chat. The only thing I have for a chair's report is that we do have a new mailing address. We were using the Tarrant County Public Health Building as our address for a long time, and it became more of a burden on them than we wanted to be. So we've got a new mailing address, and I'll get that updated in all the places it needs to be updated. Probably doesn't impact a whole lot of people, but an exciting little step for us as a council. Next, we've got Destiny as our current VISTA, and she's going to give a quick report on what she's been working on lately.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me just fine? Okay, good. So up until recently, I've been doing website edits. So those have been submitted to Becca, and I'll keep going through the website to make sure that nothing else needs to be updated on that. I've also been working on the food mapping that we have on the website. And so I've sent out to everybody that needs that the format that we're going to use for the mapping, and I'll continue to update that weekly as I get new information to add to it. I'm also going to be reaching out to all of the board members to get information about the organizations that they're a part of. And then later on, I'll be using some of that information to create blogs to put on the Facebook and Instagram pages. And so that segues into weekly, at least 1 to 3 times a week, I'll be posting on our Instagram and Facebook page. I just got access to that so that I can start doing our social media stuff. And I'm also going to be creating a document so that we can have all in one place everything that as a nonprofit we're supposed to have. If there's something that we're missing, then I'm going to be figuring out how to get all of that so that moving forward we can make sure that we've got everything that we need. And yeah, I believe that's it.
Really, really important work getting done there. Very great to hear.
Yes, ma'am. We're very grateful to have Destiny with us, and she's going to continue working with us through July. So we're hoping to get a lot more done and keep working together. So if nobody has any questions on any of that, we can move on to our guest presentation for today. So I would like to introduce Jesse Herrera, who is the founder and executive director of CoAct North Texas. And he, I believe, is going to be giving us a little bit of an update on a lot of the progress that they've been making on their projects here recently. And a lot of it is super, super exciting. So I'm glad that you're able to join us, Jesse. And do you have a slide to share with us, or slides?
I do. I have two very short presentations, one on CoAct and one on Grow Southeast. So
Awesome.
well, queued up.
Yeah, you've got the floor here, and let me know if you're having trouble with anything.
Will do. Let's see if this works. There we go. Can y'all see the presentation? Perfect. Well, it's a pleasure to be here in front of a lot of familiar faces. For those that don't know me, as mentioned, I'm Jesse Herrera. I'm the executive director of CoAct. And it's my pleasure to give you a little bit more insights into what we do at CoAct and some of the ways that we're making a difference here in Tarrant County. So CoAct was founded by myself and a couple of other passionate community members here in the city of Fort Worth. We are homegrown Fort Worthians, all born and bred in Fort Worth. We spent most of our life here in Fort Worth, so Fort Worth is what we do. I myself am a resident of the South Side, and I proudly claim that. I lived there most of my life, but now I'm a happy resident of the North Side outside of Carter Riverside. CoAct was really a manifestation. I practiced design for a very long time as a professional, mainly in architecture, and then I transitioned into construction and real estate development. And one of the things that I recognized that was a trend as I was jumping from career to career is that as a designer, I was often separated from the problems or from the individuals that I was trying to solve problems for. To give a relevant example, when I was practicing architecture, I was tasked with designing multifamily facilities for senior citizens that had mobility impairments. But never in any of these scenarios did I meet these individuals that I was designing for. And it's very difficult as a young, right out of school architect to conceive what an individual living with mobility challenges goes through on a day-to-day basis. So as one would expect, my designs would often come with a lot of shortcomings. And even though we may win designs and it may be architecturally relevant, it still fell short of its intended purpose. I recognized that this was a trend too in the nonprofit sector as I started getting more involved with community issues. And what became relevant is that as individuals, well-intentioned, well-educated individuals, a lot of us would come to the round table with very novel ideas, often being very separated from the issues that, again, we were trying to solve. So CoAct is a manifestation to address that issue. Me and my partners representing, both the nonprofit and the for-profit industries came together to create a studio, a nonprofit studio that would allow us to dive a little deeper into the issues that we're facing. Let's see if my pointer actually works on this thing. It's not. In addition to our co-founders, we also have a very diverse group of board of directors. We're being led by Ms. Stacy Graw, Dr. Graw over at TCU's Idea Factory. She's been able to bring a lot of thoughtful insights into utilizing human-centered design and design thinking into the social spectrum. So what do we do at CoAct? As mentioned, as a designer by practice, I recognize that disconnect with designers and the problems that we were trying to solve. So CoAct is a manifestation to address that. And we operate as a project-based nonprofit design studio using human-centered design and systems thinking as creative problem-solving processes. And typically when we think of design, it's very natural for us to think about the end product, whether it be a cell phone, a designer bag, an outfit, or even a building. But for us, the important part of design is the process that we use to actually solve problems, to connect with the individuals that we're trying to solve problems for, and making sure that we're making intentional moves and aligning our actions to the needs of our community. So our process encompasses three different phases. The exploration phase is where we take time to actually learn about the challenge, to get acquainted with the challenge and the people that it affects, the discovery phase where we start exploring different ideas, and the deployment phase where we actually take the ideas and actually create tangible concepts that can then take a life of their own. To dive a little deeper into how this methodology works, when we're in the exploration phase, it's really about understanding the challenge. And it's very easy, as problem solvers to come in and say, oh, well, we're going to address food insecurity. Well, if we fail to understand what food insecurity actually is and all the contributing factors, we're not doing it any service by trying to do a broad stroke approach. For us, it's really key to understand the why, to understand all the contributing factors that go into an issue like food insecurity. And then once we have a clear understanding of what it is, mapping out who is currently doing what. There's a lot of great organizations out there already offering contributions to these arenas. And it doesn't make sense as an organization to try to introduce new ideas. They're going to be competing with resources, or they're going to be undermining well put together organizations. So we want to be intentional in trying to understand as many of those solutions as possible, and also solutions that are on the horizon. As we get a firm understanding of who's doing what, then we start looking for gaps. Where are the low-hanging fruit or the opportunities where solutions can be created that are going to add value to the system? Maybe there's an unmet need, or there's a target group that's not being well served. Those might be ideal starting points rather than starting with, again, something that someone else is already doing. Some tangible practice applications look like this. As we were looking to incubate a community market over at Texas Westland, we actually took some time to engage with the community when we did our launch, to gather insights and to really get a better sense of what the community was looking for. And again, this allows us to get some tangibles and where we can start creating those alignments to those community needs. It allows us to ask more specific questions. It gives us points of inquiry that we can go back towards. And then as we start generating ideas, it allows us to hone our approach to make sure that, again, that we're aligning to the specific needs of the community. When we get into the discovery phase, then it's about reflecting on insights. How do we take what we've learned and actually apply it to creating unique ideas or ideas that are going to serve our communities? So we like to reflect on the lessons that we learned, on the insights that we gained, and the gaps that we've identified. We like to create spaces where we can explore creative new ideas and put as many ideas on the board as possible. And then as we start collecting ideas, then we want to start honing it down and identifying concepts that we can actually test and take to the field. Some ways that this may include this: when we were actually designing an art show to raise awareness and understanding on college homelessness. We actually worked together with a few youth that had previous experience with homelessness, and together we came up with some tangible concepts on, based on the gaps that we identified and some things that we wanted to see with the project. We outlined objectives, and then we started looking at some feasible prototypes that we could launch to test our ideas. Then we come into the deployment phase. This is about turning the ideas into action. So building off the discovery phase, building off all the amazing ideas, building off the prototypes that we put in the field, and actually looking at how do we scale successful ideas. What are the resources that are going to be needed to sustain the impact, and what kind of individuals are we going to need to recruit in order to help us achieve those goals? Once we get into that point, then it's about defining success. And this isn't just about defining success for the project, but also trying to define success on a larger scale. Typically, when we look at issues like food insecurity or any complex social issue, it's almost like putting together a big puzzle. As you start putting more pieces on the board, then it gives you opportunities to see how those pieces support the others. As projects begin to take a life of their own, then as an entity, we want to start looking at that exit strategy on how CoAct can detach from this project and then start deploying another project to help support it or to address another unmet need. How this looks in practice, I actually put together a small little slideshow. So kind of going back to the art show that I mentioned, after we met with the students and we kind of got some tangible ideas on the ground, we went to prototype the idea. The first prototype is the image that you see on the far right, where we actually built a cardboard structure to test this art piece in a conference setting to gather insights. And what was very interesting when we took this art piece out, we had conversations with the University of Texas at Arlington prior to this event. And the consensus was, well, that's a really nice project. It's a really great idea. We love that you're doing that, but it doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen to our students. And we heard this time and time again. And when we released this project, we found that that wasn't the case. There was, in fact, quite a few students that were brave enough to share their experience on this wall on being not only homeless once, but multiple times during their tenure at UTA. As we were progressing through 2019, we came into the beginning of 2020, and the pandemic changed everything. We had plans to put this show on the road and to make it into kind of a traveling art show. And we had to start looking at other applications to keep the project going. So we took a shift where needed, started exploring virtual reality using Mozilla Hubs. And then we hosted a design competition with the American Institute of Architects to get some inspiration. As we developed our space, the vaccine became available and it started introducing opportunities for us to meet again in person. So we took that opportunity and actually used this same virtual reality technology to do mock-ups of our space. The two images on the top represent those mock-ups. The two images on the bottom represent what eventually got built. We did our first show at the Fort Worth Community Arts Center with a huge success. We were able to collect a lot of insights and also just help raise awareness on this pressing issue. And then building from there, we launched a virtual reality art gallery to again continue that journey. And the way that these two projects built off each other, the in-person show would allow people to get a snapshot of the issue, and then the virtual reality show would allow them to get a much more emotional experience based on the journeys of the students that were experiencing homelessness. We used architecture, art, and virtual reality as a way to evoke those emotional challenges so people could really get a firm understanding of what these students were going through. Moving forward to the end of 2021, we had another opportunity to present real stories in person. We actually got a chance to present at Trinity River campus at Tarrant County College. And what made this show unique and relevant is that we actually learned from some of our previous shows. And again, working towards that idea of building a sustainable project, we actually built these art pieces based on a survey that we did or that we collected in 2018 at Tarrant County College South Campus. So the silhouettes have stories embedded in them, and those stories are derived from that survey. They are verbatim student experiences at Tarrant County College. We invited some of our student champions to come out and speak and share their story. And then moving forward from there, we've been looking for opportunities to actually showcase the story at other locations, which we're proud to announce that we have our next booking at Fort Worth Community Arts Center over Spring Gallery Night. So we love to have y'all out there to come check us out. There are other projects that we're working on through an entity, but I'd like to spend the rest of the time that we have to go over Grow Southeast, which is really where we've been working more hand in hand with the Tarrant County Food Policy Council. For anyone that wants to get more involved with CoAct, we invite you to join our newsletter so you can stay informed with the current issues and the projects that we're working on. If you have any interest in helping us guide the art project that you saw, Grow Southeast, or another project that we're developing called the Mindful Market, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for talented young steering committee members to help guide the projects. Or if you feel like donating to support our mission, please do so and schedule a donation on our website. So with that, I like to transition to Grow Southeast, the other hat that I wear quite frequently. And then we can open up for any questions. So Grow Southeast is actually a joint project between CoAct, the Healthy Tarrant County Collaboration, and the Office of Commissioner Brooks. Over the course of the past 5 years, we've been working to address food insecurity in Southeast and South Fort Worth by incubating community-owned and operated urban farms. What we've understood through our process is that food insecurity isn't just about having a lack of food, but it's also a lack of economic options. So for us, we see more tangible value in being able to incubate these community-owned farms and help them to get on a path to self-sufficiency. We feel like in that way, the impact can continue with or without CoAct. And as we can incubate more farmers on this model, hopefully it'll create a sustained impact in the long term. So just to kind of give a little overview of how Grow Southeast works, we have a couple different things that we're doing. So one of the first ones, the newest one, is actually our Farm Manager Apprenticeship Program. We launched this back in October of last year, and now over the past 12 weeks, the apprentices have been working to develop a 1/5 acre farm where they can actually implement the skills that they practice. Mr. Charlie Blaylock and Greg Joel have kindly worked with the apprentices to help provide the training, offering them the amazing insights that they've learned over their years of growing. So it's our hope that once these apprentices graduate, they'll be able to, either join forces with one of the farms on our network or be able to develop their own farms. When we first started, we had a grassy knoll on the edge of Opal's farm. It was infested with Johnson grass and a lot of weeds. And then over the course, like I said, over the past 12 weeks, we've been teaching different techniques, starting out on a rainy day, planning out their planting schedule. And then we started digging into the dirt, getting rid of the grass, getting rid of the weeds, applying compost and mulch. We then had an opportunity to teach them how to use our BCS tractor and the Kubota tractor over at Opal's farm, which was very fun. Then they got an opportunity to actually come to Shine's farm stand and learn a little bit about how to start up their own seedling trays. We taught them how to install drip irrigation. And then this past week, they actually learned how to plant onions in their beds. The other exciting thing too is as these young men have been growing their skills, they've also been growing their volunteer base. This past weekend, when they were installing their onions, they had about 20 individual volunteers there helping them cultivate the land. So it's good to see that these young, ambitious individuals are taking this responsibility seriously and that they're engaging this industry as leaders to bring other individuals in and help spread the word on the great work that they're doing. This is what it looks like right now. So we kind of remember what it looked like prior when they first started as a grassy knoll. It's come a very long way. And we're excited to see what the rest of the year will hold as these individuals hone their skill sets. Additionally, Grow Southeast is also helping incubate 4 community-owned and operated urban farms throughout South and Southeast Fort Worth. We originally started out with 6, and now we've kind of honed down to 4 that have the highest possibility of getting to self-sufficiency. So to provide a little updates to some of those farms, our first one is Tabor. This one has been an interesting journey for those that have followed. Over the past 5 years, we've had to work hand in hand with the city of Fort Worth to navigate the Urban Agriculture Ordinance. For those that don't know, the Urban Agriculture Ordinance was a project implemented by Blue Zones. I believe it was implemented in August of 2016, and we're the first organization to actually utilize it at full capacity. As we've been navigating this ordinance, we've learned that there's some things that it does very well, and that's allowed us to expedite. But since it's still fairly new, there's a lot of things that we've had to learn together with the city of Fort Worth, and it's created some confusion and at sometimes some conflicts. With this farm in particular, we've had to go back and forth so many times with the urban agriculture ordinance, particularly around urban forestry and just interpretations of the permit, that it's eaten up a good chunk of time. We'll get into some of those details a little bit later, but we're excited to say that over the past couple of years, we've actually been able to make a lot of work on Tabor farms. Starting off this year, we've been doing a number of events to help prepare them for their first harvest. We started by applying additional mulch and compost to their production beds. And we also, just this past week, planted 24 fruit trees that were donated by Blue Zones to help them establish a fruit orchard and also to satisfy requirements from the city of Fort Worth. It's been a very exciting journey. One of the big pieces being that we also recently received electrical service through Encore, which once complete will allow us to irrigate at full capacity. So the next steps of Tabor Farms is going to be installing drip irrigation. It's going to be seeding for the spring. It's going to be spreading silage tarps, and then we're going to be looking to build up their volunteer base. Some of the challenges that we've encountered as we've been incubating Tabor Farms is just permitting the electrical scope. Again, there's a lot of interpretations of how certain things are written in the Urban Agriculture Ordinance, and those can cause delays and sometimes some growing pains. We'll also be looking for funding for some of their capital projects, including fencing, storage, and parking lots, which again are needed to help us satisfy the requirements to the city of Fort Worth. And then we'll be looking to help coordinate volunteer operations so they can build up their base and continue their success. I forgot to mention this too. Tabor Farms is actually operated by Greater Mount Tabor Christian Center. They operate on approximately a 3-acre lot. And like I said, it's been a very interesting project to work with over the past 5 years. The next farm that we've spent a lot of time with is Mind Your Garden Urban Farm. It's a 3.5-acre farm located in a homestead over off of Berry and Riverside. I believe Stephen and Ursula are on the call today, so it's always good to see y'all. They've been doing a lot of interesting things with the farm. So one of the unique things that makes them different is that they're actually utilizing permaculture on the farm. So it'll be exciting to see what kind of products or what kind of yields they're able to get with permaculture versus some of the other growing techniques that are being utilized through our network. The other thing too that really makes this farm unique is that they're not just using the farm as a place to sell food and address these food disparities, but they've also recognized the value of creating personal support. In their own journey to adopt a plant-based lifestyle and try to embrace more healthy habits, they discovered something very unique. When they adopted a plant-based lifestyle and they stopped drinking alcohol, most of their friends abandoned them. And I'll be blunt enough to admit that I was one of those people for a short period. It was very easy to poke fun at Stephen and Ursula because, well, you're the weirdos now. You're vegan, I can't eat with you. I can't hang with you. We can't do anything together. So I'm just going to go do my thing and we'll catch up when we can. And that's wrong. Here we are as a society, and it's very easy to kind of poke fun at people that do the right thing, that live these healthy habits. We've kind of made it cool to be unhealthy. So what they realize with this is that they want to use the farm as a space to help cultivate and celebrate healthy habits, creating spaces where communities of color or communities that often don't indulge in these habits can have opportunities to celebrate this with peers and support. That support system is going to be very critical, especially for some of these communities that, this is all they know, to be able to take those first initial steps into adopting this lifestyle. I'm happy to say that because of them and because of their influence, I've been embracing more plant-based diets and been trying to wean myself off some of these negative habits that I indulged in. So, the proof is there. Some of the exciting things that are coming up with Mind Your Garden Urban Farms, just to kind of share, they're participating in a compost program that was sponsored by Blue Zones Project using a company called Carpool Compost, if I remember. And on any given week, Stephen and Ursula receive, I believe, 1,500 pounds of organic waste that they then turn into compost. And mind you, this is, just from one small grocery store that's next to them. This is happening every single week across grocery stores, all across the county, all across America. And that truckload is, average what's received on a given day. There's more that could be received if capacity was there. They've also been fortunate enough to be able to engage with some volunteer groups, including Forester Insurance, where they were able to build some really nice demonstration beds at the front of the house. These demonstration beds are going to be used to help teach others how to best utilize their land. So in the case of, say, if you live on a home and you've got a really small yard, they have a size where they can teach you how to cultivate your land and use it for food production. And then they have larger demonstration gardens for individuals that maybe live next to a park or have larger lots of land where they can explore different options. Also, over the holiday break, they were blessed with another project with Blue Zones where they were able to actually create a cooking demonstration, which is actually streaming right now on YouTube. It's the most cameras I've ever seen in my life. They came with a very professional setting. And when you look at it, it almost looks like you're watching a professional cooking show that would be done by Gordon Ramsay or any celebrity chef. They did a phenomenal job. And again, it's just another step into showcasing some of the techniques that they're using to help, inspire change in their community. It's also good that Blue Zones, is, connecting with individuals that represent the communities that oftentimes, get overlooked. So this was a really good opportunity, again, for not just Stephen and Ursula, but for Blue Zones to really connect with the communities that need this knowledge. The last project that they're going to be in, that I'm going to talk about, is the restroom, which is shown on the top left. They were awarded a grant through Challenge Tarrant County to actually develop a demonstration kitchen to expand on these cooking demos, and also to fund an outdoor restroom so they can scale up their volunteer operations. Over the next couple of months, we'll be looking for volunteers to actually help build this structure. So I think this will be a really fun task if the Food Policy Council wants to get more involved. to get some folks out there at the farm, to build some exposure to Stephen and Ursula, and to help us get to that next critical step. As mentioned, we're going to be building up the restroom, but we're also going to be looking for volunteers to help us build up the production beds, to build up their irrigation system, and to also pilot a concept called Healthy Hour, where they'll be creating a space kind of similar to a bar or a restaurant where people can come to socialize and cultivate these healthy habits. So we'll be looking for folks to help us out with that pilot and share your insights on the experience. Black Wall Street is the smallest farm that we're currently serving through Grow Southeast. It operates on a 25-foot by 25-foot lot in the back of a church. This was actually put together by a gentleman named Robert L., who's been a longtime advocate for change and healthy food in his community. The farm actually started off on another property, and unfortunately that property owner passed away a couple of years ago, and Robert shifted his operation to the current location now, which has worked out pretty well. One of the key lessons that we learned with this, which is very important, is always just checking the site, knowing what's underneath the dirt. We found out after digging this up that this was actually built on an old parking lot, and the previous owner actually spread gravel across the entire site. So we had to do quite a bit of amendments to actually get the farm set up. So it's just one of the things to be aware of as you're developing sites. One of the advantages that the church brought is that it's got a lot of the infrastructure there. So contradictory to Tabor Farms, where we're having to spend a lot of capital investing in irrigation and investing in electricity, fencing, storage, we had all that really available at the church, so we were able to start growing right away. Over the course of a couple months, we recruited volunteers from Alpha Phi and a few diehard fans with Grow Southeast, and we were able to get the farm established with irrigation. Unfortunately, though, they've been getting a lot of good visibility, and I guess someone caught wind of that. And over the past 4 weeks, someone actually went and raided the farm and took some of the irrigation infrastructure. So we'll be talking a little bit about that here in a bit. As we get them set up again, what we'll be looking for is to reinstall the irrigation system. We'll hopefully be buying the components for that again pretty soon. And then once we get it set up, we'll be looking for volunteers to kind of help us get them reseeded and reestablished. The last farm, which most of y'all probably know, is Opal's Farm. This is probably the most active farm on our network. We've been working with them over the past 3 years to develop their strategy, align volunteer opportunities, and also this is where we host the farm apprenticeship. It's been a really effective collaboration and it's been a big help of helping us train the next generation of farmers. They operate on roughly about a 3-acre lot right now that's owned by Tarrant Regional Water District, but they have the capacity to expand up to 8, if I remember by memory. And I think there's an additional 4 acres that are available depending on how far they want to expand. It's been a pretty effective partnership, but it does come with caveats for anyone looking at trying to do partnerships with the water district. Depending on where the site is located, there are restrictions on the type of partnerships you can build. There are restrictions with the type of infrastructure you can build on site, especially if it's in a floodplain. You're not going to be able to build permanent structures, but at least one of the advantages that we got at Opals is that we were able to tap into the Trinity River as a water source. For those that are concerned with that, the Trinity River is actually the cleanest urban river in the country. The Tarrant Regional Water District has done a really good job at improving the health of the river, at least on this side of the city. I can't speak for Dallas, but at least for Tarrant County, it's really good water to be using for irrigation. Over the past year, we were successful in getting a few volunteer operations out there through TCU. One of the unique products that they're going to start growing this year is bitter melons, which we learned last year actually have value in the leaves as well. There's a lot of use in Jamaican cuisine, and they actually use the leaves and dry them out to make tea. So that'd be exciting to see. For those that don't know, Opal's Farm is actually owned by Opal Lee. So it's a part of her legacy. And in addition to being the grandmother of Juneteenth, she's also building a legacy to make sure that families in Tarrant County and the greater Fort Worth area can have access to fresh food. And I can say that she's meeting that objective. Last year, they were able to donate around 50% of their food to social causes, and they're hoping to repeat that trend this year if weather permits. Some of the big steps that we're going to be looking to do over this year is expanding to the next acre. We're going to be looking to fix some of the equipment that we've been utilizing. Equipment breaks, it's just part of running a farm. And then we'll be hopefully looking to purchase some new storage units so we can store our tractors a little bit more effectively without worry of theft. And then again, similar to the rest of the farms, we'll be looking to build up our volunteer base. With expansion comes challenges. You need labor or equipment to effectively expand. And right now, Opals is at a pretty good sweet spot where they're going to need some fresh labor or more substantial labor to help them get to that next point. It goes without saying that this project would not be possible without engagement, without the contributions of not only of our funders, but our volunteers. We have a very dedicated steering committee that has helped us through every step of this project. We cannot, begin to say how much we appreciate them. Charlie alone has done so much for Grow Southeast, and between him and the collection of architects and others that have, spent their time with us on Wednesdays, chomping through these action items, coming out to the farm to help us, build these projects, we would not be able to make the progress that we've made today. So we love, for y'all to get involved. Anyone that would love to learn more about Grow Southeast and what we do, we invite you to join our newsletter. We invite you to come out and volunteer your time at one of the farms. We actually have 2 on our website right now for Taper Farms to help you through the next couple of steps. And for those that want to get more involved and help us with actually building out these projects and helping these farms get to self-sufficiency, consider joining the steering committee. We always have room for talented young members to help us guide our project. And for those that want to support us through a donation, we love to have your support. Every dollar goes to help build a farm, to help support tools, to help support material amendments, to buy compost and soil. So it's money well spent. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions that the audience may have.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, if you're not able to unmute yourself, let me know and we'll get you unmuted. We just have a couple of minutes here to answer some questions, and we've got some other reports. So feel free to jump in if you've got something for Jesse.
Hey, thank you, Jesse, for presenting. I have a quick question. You mentioned the Community Arts Center, that you would have another exhibit in the spring, but you didn't mention the dates. Do you have those set already?
I actually do. We're going to start our installation on March the 4th, and I believe it will finish on March the 26th. As of right now, tentatively, we have our opening reception scheduled for that Friday the 4th. And I think our closing reception will be on the 25th. The opening reception will have 3 student champions. We'll be inviting 3 student champions out to share their personal story. And then in the closing reception, we're actually looking forward to having community members come out and share their own personal experiences.
Thank you.
Jesse, do you have links for any of these events that you might be able to share in the chat?
I do. I think the best, let me see. Trying to think what's going to be the best way to get you set up with that. So let me share a link to our art project real quick. This first link's on Real Stories, which is the art project which we referenced. And the second link is actually going to be to the Grow Southeast webpage directly to the events, just to give you updates on the upcoming events. And if you go to the home page, it should actually give you the option to sign up for our newsletter. And this is the same for both websites.
Well done, Jesse. Having all of those links handy is quite a feat. I wanted to ask real quick, how can this group or people watching best help? And kind of a two-parter, what kinds of collaboration from either this group or other organizations in the area are you interested in? Are you looking for? Are you really needing? Are there some pain points that we could kind of throw up as a last note?
Yeah,
Thanks.
so I see three things. The first major one, which I think is where the Tarrant County Food Policy Council could be the most effective, is helping us with some of these interpretations with the urban agriculture ordinance. I don't want to get too deep into the details, but just to give the latest example, in the urban agriculture ordinance, it is written that non-habitable structures of 400 square feet or less will not require, try to remember how it's exactly stated. Non-habitable structures over 400 square feet will require a permit. That's how it's written in the code. And we happen to have a non-habitable structure, a little store shed that we built for our well pump. And it's probably a 6 by 5 foot structure that, is now being required to have a building permit, even though the urban agriculture ordinance states that it's not required for any structures unless they're over 400 square feet. So it's just helping us being able to navigate policy, things like that. And how do we create clarity so future community members that want to build their own urban farms aren't running into the same challenges? I mean, we want to do what we can through Grow Southeast to help out with that, but we're only one organization and there's only so much that we can do. So I think as we start looking at how we empower other community members to be able to replicate these models, being able to overcome these policy challenges is probably the biggest thing, because those are going to be the things that lead to those pain points. And at least for us, it's what's made this journey with Tabor Farm so long and difficult, because when you have to get pro bono services from architects and engineers, you don't have the luxury of being able to snap your fingers and demand that it's turned over immediately. You get it when you get it, and it adds up after a while. The other two places I see where we could use help is really just recruiting additional volunteers. Each of the farms are getting to a point where they're going to start, requiring a lot more help. They're going to start growing, I think, hopefully by this year, if everything falls in as planned. So that's going to require them to have a steady group of volunteers to help them on a reoccurring basis. The ideal scenario is that each farm would have, their steady crew of 4 or 5 folks that are their diehards that go there each and every week. So we'll be looking for help to how we can help them accomplish that. And then the last would be, if there's any resources out there that can help us with some of these capital costs. That's typically the hardest thing to fund, especially when you're trying to fund a $30,000 parking lot. There's not really any ways to make a parking lot sexy or attractive to a funder, but it's necessary if you're trying to do volunteer operations. So I think collectively as a group, if we can identify these resources, it won't just help us, but again, it'll help anyone else that's trying to build an urban farm on a vacant plot to be more successful.
Can I make a comment? And perhaps it's better suited when we get to the work group meetings, but in reference to Jesse's point about the urban ag ordinance, I think that would be a really good starting point perhaps for our new policy work group, because it's not requiring us creating or advocating for a brand new policy, but rather working with a framework that's already there and just needs refining now that it's in practice. So it would be a great starting point. It's actually needed. We're not starting from scratch. We're saying, hey, this is in practice. These farms are trying to get started, and it would be like a good practice round for our new policy work group, perhaps. So just my 2 cents.
If that's decided, we'd be glad to share any of our experiences going through this to try to help.
Jesse, quick question. Are you already working with the TCC Department of Horticulture on, or have you had any luck on engagement with that for volunteers?
David Cole did actually send a few volunteers out last year, and they're working with us to do transfer. At our next urban agriculture and community garden meeting.
Okay, very cool. And let me know if there's something maybe that I could help do there to maybe shore up a more permanent partnership.
Yep. And Charlie, is there anything you want to add to that I missed?
Sure. One of the best things we can all do is our first step is engagement, right? And so all of us going over to some healthy hours when Steve and Ursula have those up and running will be a great way for us to meet in person outside safely and happily, because in person is so much happier than online. So that's one level of engagement. And then the other one is, if you haven't read, I'm sure there's a study that putting your hands in dirt makes you healthier and happier. Yeah, come out and play in the dirt with us too. That's a whole lot of fun.
And to kind of add to Charlie's point too, I mean, it's a great workout. So, you know, if you want to save some money on your gym fees, just come to the farm every day. You'll get your steps in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse, for presenting to us today. You've given us lots of opportunities to interact with y'all and become involved. So if y'all haven't visited the websites he shared, I would encourage y'all to do so. And perhaps you'll see a group of Food Policy Council board members coming out to volunteer this year. I know we've talked about doing things like that, and I think y'all would be a great site to volunteer with. We're getting towards the end of our meeting here, y'all, and we've got a few more things to cover, so we may run a few minutes long. Hang with us if you can. If you can't, we certainly understand. We'll go ahead and go quickly through the working group reports, and the Community Gardens and Urban Agriculture Working Group is first. If y'all are looking to participate with us as a council member, the working groups is where a lot of the work gets done. And so, listen carefully and see if something sounds interesting to you. But I'll turn it over to Dave and Lauren.
All right, so Lauren put together a great slide for us. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share that. Can everybody see the little slide there? Okay, great. So Lauren Hickman and I are co-chairs of the Community Gardens and Urban Agriculture Working Group. And I'll try to be very brief here. Our guest speaker for the meeting was David Bulpit. Brittany mentioned the horticulture program at TCC Northwest, and he runs it. He's the horticulture program manager. And I've been hearing about this program for years, and I know that a lot of us have worked with David Cole, but I didn't know how long the program had been going. It's been going since 1976. And it's the only comprehensive college level horticulture program left in the DFW area. And there are jobs at the end of this. You get an associate degree, you get 60 course credits, 4 full-time semesters. You can do certificates. They have one in horticulture business if people want to start their own business with horticulture. They do an April plant sale to support the program and send students to present at conferences. And I think Friday, April 8th is their goal for this year, pandemic permitting. But they do really great work. And we added a flyer about their program to the Garden Resources page of the Food Policy Council web site. And the TCC Northwest program is getting their own website redone. So once they do that, we'll link directly to that. So great opportunity if you want to get involved in horticulture at a professional level. Jesse and Charlie gave us a great update on Grow Southeast, which you just heard, so I can just move right along. Lauren gave us an update on Tarrant Area Food Bank's garden program and network. A lot of great stuff going on, including an expanded version of Dig Deep, which you'll be hearing more about in the future. So stay tuned for that. But most of the meeting after the guest presentation, we talked about potential projects that our group might take up this year. And Jesse's already named a couple, which is around the urban ag ordinance. Our working group actually helped create that ordinance. We reached out to a bunch of community partners and included their feedback in the ordinance. So I think it'd be great for us to be involved in helping it get updated. And I would love to work with the policy group on that. But also just to maybe sit down with Jesse and Charlie and the farmers from Grow Southeast and say, what were the goods and the bads? How did you work through this ordinance? Because it's not always clear if you actually read this ordinance, how do I actually do this on my land if I want to start a farm? So I think it'd be great for us to have a little how-to update on that. Big project that I think Lauren and I are both would really like to see happen would be to find the funds to have a small pot of money that people who are doing worthy community garden, urban agriculture projects to support communities in accessing healthy food. We'd love to be able to give out small grants for that. And that means some fundraising. So I think Becca's been thinking about maybe the fundraising committee could be involved in that. And maybe we could apply for some grants, maybe we could have crowdfunding, whatever, but we need to figure all that out, but we've been hoping to do that. Jesse also mentioned way more effective way to get volunteers paired up with community gardens and farms. And so there's a bunch of sort of ways to do that individual by individual, program by program, but I don't know. So we talked about that. There's also the issue of, if you have a garden or a farm, it takes a lot of water. We're in Texas, it gets hot here. Right now we have a lot of water on the ground, which is great, but we don't normally. So that's a big expense for a lot of community gardens and farms. And I've heard from the city of Fort Worth that it's a no-go to not charge water fees in some areas, but we can try. I think we can advocate. And Charlie also mentioned maybe at least forgiving the stormwater fees, since they're actually reducing runoff by keeping that water on the farm. So that's one thing we talked about. And then there's so much. I'll just say one more thing. There's a new project that we heard about from Suzanne Hoff and Fellowship of the Arts. And they're partnering with JROTC groups throughout Fort Worth ISD to put in more school gardens at middle schools and high schools. So partner with that project, help make it happen, and so on. So I will stop sharing. Oh, and our next meeting, sorry, before I stop sharing this slide, Thursday, March 24th at 3, and that'll be by Zoom. And yeah, that's it. That's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave and Lauren. If y'all have questions for them, you saw their contact information there, and would welcome y'all to attend the next meeting. Alexandra, do you have our children's health report?
Hello, my name is Alexandra Thurston. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Children's Health Working Group. My fellow co-chair is Vahista Asari, who unfortunately was not able to join today. So what we've been focusing on is changing the default beverage on children's meals at restaurants here in the city of Fort Worth, with the goal of it eventually expanding to the county and throughout the county. Because as I'm sure you all know, in many cases, the default beverage is a sugar sweetened beverage such as soda, but not only is it entirely possible to change this default, many major chains, including McDonald's, Burger King, have changed their default beverage. So absolutely doable. The last meeting we had was on December 15th, and there we wrapped up our research of the current mayor and city council members. We talked about who may be our theoretical champions and opponents, as well as discussing what the next steps in this process will be. We meet on the third Tuesdays of even months at 10:30 a.m. And our next meeting will be on February 16th, which is, a couple of weeks away. We meet via Google Hangouts, and you can reach us at children'shealth@tarrantcountyfoodpolicycouncil.org, which I will also drop in the chat, and we can get you looped in. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Alexandra. Gina and Brittany are next with Food Recovery Working Group. Do y'all still need me to share your slide?
I do not. Thank you, Becca. That is assuming that I can figure it out, which I did. There we go. Okay. Our last meeting was Friday, January 14th. Brenda presented about Blue Zone's very successful food recovery efforts and school food pantries. We had a fairly involved discussion over, so food recovery for us kind of involves two major situations that we've had success in Tarrant County, which is one, diverting culled produce to some of the urban farms in Tarrant County, including those farms that are in Gross Southeast, Opal's farm in particular, to have that food be made into compost, which will then go to feed new food. But then Brenda recently has also had a lot of success working with a couple of very forward-thinking grocers and diverting some of that cold produce as wholesome food to local food pantries. And so that's going to be kind of where I will be shifting focus also. Oh, also, apologies, pause and roll back. My name is Brittany Rosenberg. I'm Executive Director of the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling. I am also co-chair of the Food Recovery Working Group, along with Dr. Gina Hill, who is not with us, I don't believe, because she is having an excellent family day snowboarding.
I'm here
sledding.
listening.
Oh, you
I'm
are
just-
here, Gina. Okay, apologies.
Yes.
Well, I hope that you had a good time and enjoyed the snow. So yes, we had a great meeting, and we're going to be focusing more on those wholesome food recovery efforts. Our next meeting is Friday, March 11th from noon to 1. We also have in progress, we and our members are working on our food recovery how-to and resources webpage that we're going to add onto the Tarrant County Food Policy Council webpage. Also additional side note on that, you can now visit our website by going to TCFPC.org, Tarrant County Food Policy Council.org. TCFPC.org. Okay, yes, our shortened acronym is now also a working URL for our website, for those of you that want to type it in quicker. Future plans, very cool things that Gina has on the horizons, which we're going to discuss a partnership with TCU to look at how we can get more students and more volunteers involved in the actual food recovery process, where it's going to either say like Gospel Union Mission or another, where it's going to feed people, not just the soil. That's what's up in the world of food recovery.
Super cool and awesome. Thank you, Brittany. And thank you for setting up the website link. It is much shorter than our current web address. All right, Susie and Brenda, do you want to chat just briefly about our new working group or upcoming working group?
You mean our new policy working group? We got mentioned before in dealing with the looking at the existing ordinance in the city and how that's helping and not helping urban agriculture projects. We're going to figure out also what else, what other kinds of things that we'll work on policy wise. And, the Texas legislative session is coming up next year, and the Farm Bill is going to be up for reauthorization next year. So there probably will be lots of opportunities for us to sign on, support, advocate, and educate. So if you're interested in helping out with policy, let us know. Oh, good, Brittany. I'm glad you're excited to tackle the Farm Bill. It's always fascinating and interesting to see how some of that works out. Let us know if you're interested in being part of the policy working group. The more the merrier.
Very cool. All right, we've got some quick committee reports, and then we'll have time for any announcements, comments, or questions. Committee reports, Catherine, you're up with communications.
Not much to report. We are going to be having a social media campaign to meet the board popping up soon. So if you're not following us on Instagram and Facebook, please follow us both there for upcoming events for the council, as well as interesting information about what's going on in the food space. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Education and events. Gina or Alexandra, if you want to tackle that one.
Yes, indeed. Kind of picking up where Catherine left off, talking about events. We help to schedule not just the speakers for this meeting, but also other public facing events as well. We are, of course, keeping a close eye on what's happening with the pandemic before we start to really plan things, but we've talked about, for example, some of those outdoor volunteer opportunities, and we kind of did a trial run with an internal, kind of meet and greet for the board members. But it was just the timing turned out not to be great for that. There were only 4 of us, if you count the person who was on duty at the time. But we are always, we are definitely looking at a healthy hour as well. So you'll be hearing from us soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Robin or Brittany, do you have a fundraising update?
Do not have a fundraising update at the moment.
Sounds good. From this meeting, it sounded like there might be some events or things coming up, so we'll hear from you soon about that. Membership committee, do you have any updates, Susie or Harrison?
We did meet yesterday and we're talking about what we think is going to make the most sense with membership going forward. We'll present some of that to the board next month and hopefully have a decision when we come back in April. Harrison, do you want to say something about the membership forms?
Yeah, I just uploaded the 2022 membership form to the chat, which is still what we're using to document that. So if you have an opportunity, then please download that, fill it out, and send it to our email, and we will get you noted on our books. Members can vote, which we will have later at the end of the year. And so if you haven't filled one of these out this year, please do and send it our way.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got quickly through those. Any announcements, comments, questions from board members or from anyone listening today, or any suggestions on things that we could be working on? I'll open it up to the floor.
It's frozen and icy. We're not going to be at the farmers market this weekend. None of us are. The Cowtown Farmers Market is closed Saturday. Stay home, stay safe, and stay warm.
Okay, awesome. Well, this was a great meeting. It sounds like our working groups and committees are getting a lot done and moving forward. So I hope those of y'all who are listening, who are not on our board, if you haven't participated in one of our working groups, I would encourage you to jump in and listen, participate as you can. The more collaboration we have, the more well supported our food system is going to be, and the more we can get done together. So if nobody else has anything, I guess we can adjourn for the day. Brittany, you have something?
Yes, I think. How can people find our meetings?
Currently, they are listed on our website on our events page. You can also get on our email list that Harrison mentioned. Harrison, what is the best way to get on the email list?
That's to email us. And our general Tarrant County Food Policy Council at gmail.com is a great catch-all. And I'll put that in the chat again, but if you email any board member, they can forward that over to me and I'll make sure to get you on our MailChimp account.
Cool. And since I will not be at the farmers market on Saturday, I'm going to make some website updates this week, and we'll see if I can add a contact form that makes it a little bit easier to get on our mailing list. But yes, an email reminder usually goes out a week or two in advance. It's on social media, on our website, on our events page, which is where you should be able to find our working group meetings as well, with links as they're updated. Those are probably the best ways, kind of, whether you're on social media or not, you should be able to find us. All right. Well, awesome. I hope everybody has a nice warm week. I haven't heard too many people lose power yet, and hopefully it stays that way and we can get through this and have some nice warm weather afterwards. All right. I will see y'all around and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Becca.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jesse.